All right, so as we saw, we're looking at Germany and Colombia, and Germany has both the absolute advantage in the production of cars as well as coffee. But that's not what trade is based upon, right? Trade is, oops, hit the camera again. Trade is based upon comparative advantage. So how are we going to figure out the comparative advantage? And what we have to do is look at opportunity costs. We have to understand who has the lowest opportunity cost in the production of cars and coffee. Now the fact is if Germany has the lowest opportunity cost in both the production of cars and coffee, then it makes no sense for Colombia to trade, right? It's only if Colombia has lower opportunity costs in the production of one of these outputs that it makes sense to trade. Now, there's a couple of different ways to do it. I'm gonna just kind of show you this way, and again, if you're a math major and you know a better or easier way to do it, then knock yourself out. But we'll start with Colombia, right? So if we take, we know in Colombia's case, if we take all of the resources and they produce cars, they can produce 15 cars, right? Or if they take that same finite amount of resources and devote that all entirely to the production of coffee, they can make 15 coffees. So because that's a finite amount of resources, it's the same in either way, those are equal, all right? So in order to reduce this down, if I go 15, one car equals, in this case, one coffee. So in order to gain a car, they have to give up a coffee. And then vice versa is true. In order to gain a coffee, they have to give up one car. So that's Colombia's opportunity cost. Make sense? Now, let's look at Germany. For Germany, if they take all of the resources and produce cars, they're going to produce 90 cars. If they take all of those resources and produce coffee, they're going to produce 30 coffee. So those become equal. So now to reduce it down, one car, so 90 divided by 90 is 1, and 30 divided by 90 is what? 1/3 of coffee. And then one coffee, so in this case now, I divide that by 30 to get 1. 30 divided by 30 is 1. 90 divided by 30 is 3 cars. So that becomes Germany's opportunity cost. So now it's easy to look at and assess the comparative advantage, because who has the comparative advantage in terms of cars? Well, to gain a car, Germany only has to give up 1/3 of a coffee. But to gain a car, Colombia has to give up 1 whole unit of coffee. So this is the lowest opportunity cost. So Germany has the comparative advantage in the production of cars. But what about coffee? Look at coffee. Now, in order to gain a coffee, Colombia has to give up 1 car. But for Germany to gain a coffee, they have to give up 3 cars. So this is the lowest opportunity cost. So Colombia has the comparative advantage in the production of coffee. And now it makes sense. Now it makes sense for Colombia to trade with Germany and based upon comparative advantage. And we can kind of prove this by I'm looking for my rag here. All right, so to prove that it makes sense for them to trade, let's do this. I'm going to give you a couple of inputs here, or assumptions. The first is I'm going to give you an exchange rate. And the exchange rate I'm going to use is 2 cars equals 1 coffee, which that seems a little goofy and lopsided, I know, just bear with me. The other thing I have to tell you is what the socially optimal point is. So the socially optimal, or the best for society point in both cases is going to be B, because recall, production possibility doesn't give you that information. And then the third thing I'm going to tell you is that Germany needs 10 units of coffee. Now, given that, let's see what we have. So if this is what's socially optimal, then we can see before trade occurs, what's Germany producing? Germany's producing 60 cars and 10 coffees. Do you see that? 60 cars and 10 coffees. Now, in the interest of space, I'm going to erase this and rewrite that. So 60 cars cars, 10 coffee equals 70 units total. Does that make sense? Okay. And then in the case of Colombia, point B is 10 cars, 5 coffee. So 10 cars, 5 coffee. 10 cars, 5 coffee. 10 cars, 5 coffee equals 15 units total. Now, in order for trade to make sense, each country has to improve upon that number, okay? And we'll just leave up the opportunity cost for a moment. All right, so here's what happens. If you go back and you look at what I just erased, if Germany is going to trade with Colombia, they're going to focus in on what? They're going to focus in on the production of cars. And they can produce a total of what? 90 cars. If they produce all of that, okay? But the one thing we do know is that they need 10 units of coffee. So, and in Colombia, what Colombia is going to do is Colombia is going to focus all of their production on coffee. So they're going to produce 15 units of coffee. So Germany produces 90 units of cars using all of the resources to produce cars because that's what they have comparative advantage. Colombia, 15 units of coffee because they have the comparative advantage in coffee and that's what they're going to produce. And then they're going to trade. So in order for Germany to get 10 units of coffee, how many units of cars are they going to have to trade? Well, given our exchange rate, right, 10 units of coffee, it's going to be 20 cars. So what happens is we subtract 20 cars, and that leaves 70 cars. So 70 cars, and then this 20 units of cars is going to go over here, 20 cars. They're going to send their 10 units of coffee over here. And now 70 plus 10 is 80. So Germany has improved upon its units. And once we subtract that, that's going to be 5 units of coffee plus 20 units of cars is 25 units. And that's bigger than 15. So we've just proven that it does make sense for both Germany and Colombia to engage in trade, concentrating on what they have a comparative advantage or lowest opportunity cost in. And that's really it's a very simplistic model, or example, but that's really how trade is determined, both internationally and in the U.S. So I hope that makes sense. I will end by saying that the key to approaching this problem is, like I said before, kind of figuring out this little matrix here, figuring out who has absolute advantage and who has comparative advantage, and then going from there. So if this was totally confusing, then leave me some comments down in the comment section, and I'll try to answer. Thanks.